our lifestyles are fast, what I call kind of fast problems. Get rich fast, right? Eat fast, exercise fast. We demand things now, right? This kind of consumerism of fast. I want it now and I need it now. So fast money, fast enlightenment, that kind of speaks to the cult aspect, this fast enlightenment. I'm just going to follow a guru and I'll be enlightened, as opposed to the long, slow haul of what Christ asks us to carry the cross every day. So all of these things, there is some responsibility on our part, right, to look how we're behaving. But we got kind of used to this culture. So we demand all these products. And how are we going to meet that demand? Well, it's easier just to spray pesticides and then to create seeds that resist the pesticides, which are GMOs. So they can, because a pesticide will kill everything, right? It's like it's actually kind of an antifungal, antibacteria thing. It'll kill, like in our gut, it'll kill like an antibiotic. It kills everything, even the good stuff. So now we have to have Roundup Ready seeds, which are GMO seeds. And it's what happens is eventually this destroys the nutritive value of the soil.
Howdy, everyone, and welcome back to Moment of Truth, the podcast of American Moment. My name is Nick Solheim. I am the CEO of American Moment, and I'm very glad to be with you again this week. We had a very fun guest, Jennifer Galardi from the Heritage Foundation, to talk about all things MAHA. I feel like we have not done enough MAHA content in the last 6 months, so we're hitting you with these episodes hard and fast. We talked about the importance of our food supply and why it needs to be healthy, should be good for you. We talked about beef tallow fries. We talked about the pharmaceutical industry, Ozempic, etc. It was a very entertaining conversation. Jennifer was fantastic. She does a lot of great work over there at the Heritage Foundation, and I'm very glad, that we took notice of her and the work she's doing, that we were able to bring her onto this show. We had a very engaging conversation that I'm excited for you all to listen to. So we will go now to Jennifer Galardi. Jennifer, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to speak with you.
So you have a very interesting story for how you've ended up, being a leader in the MAHA movement. We were talking a little bit about it before we started recording, and I'm actually genuinely fascinated about how all of this happened. So tell us the story. How did you end up here?
Short version or the long
version?
No,
The
medium
long
version.
version. I like the long version.
Goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, in Scranton. Came out of Joe Biden territory. Scranton Joe ended up in very different positions, thank goodness. I went to school, undergrad at Washington and Lee University in Virginia, a very conservative institution, majored in public policy, and then moved to Birmingham, Alabama for my first job out of college.
Wow.
And I said, I think I've had enough of this conservative stuff. And I moved up. And
you moved to Alabama?
Well, no, after Alabama, like 2 years in Alabama, I'm like, I'm out. Peace out. And I packed up my car and I moved to Los Angeles, about as far away as you can possibly move.
Yeah.
And didn't have a job, didn't have anything. And kind of, this is where there's a lot of condensation of the story and material, but I was there for 20 years on and off. I lived in New York City for a stint. I lived in Austin for a stint, went back to LA, but very much got sucked into kind of progressive ideology without realizing it. And this is what I say, why it's kind of dangerous. It's a slow drip feed. And all of a sudden you've got like the future is female and Black Lives Matter on your computer stickers and everything, and I wasn't really political. I had left that life from what I was studying in undergrad, but you start to take on the philosophy and the grievances and, women aren't appreciated and the language of the left without even realizing it, particularly in California. That was happening underneath the surface. My career ended up going into the fitness and health world. I was a dancer growing up, also an athlete, played tennis, but kind of got back into the dance scene in Los Angeles. There were all these classes, great fitness classes. I was spending most of my evenings, I ended up working in a retail store called Fred Siegel, but after work, I would go take dance classes, Billy Blank's Tae-Bo. I don't know if you remember that trend. You're too young. The older members of the audience will remember that.
I'm also a man, so
Yeah, no, there were like all sorts of people in there. You'd be sweating it out with like the manliest of the men, and he's pretty.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. It was kickboxing, but it was intense.
I'm sure my wife is gonna bop me on the head for not knowing
No,
this
but
reference at all. I'm sure she does.
I don't think it's a male or female thing. I think it's more of a generational thing
Yeah.
that was coming up. Anyway, so I got into kind of this dance fitness world, and I started doing DVDs, on camera workouts, and then just started working with some celebrities, prepping them. Kim Kardashian, Julianne Hough of Dancing with the Stars, worked with the Dancing with the Stars team.
Wow.
And that was my career for a good decade. I evolved it. I went back to New York to go to school for nutrition. Then I got down the slippery slope of yoga, meditation, kind of the woo-y stuff, the
I don't like that
crystals,
stuff.
essential oils. I mean, I was deep. This is definitely the short version. I kind of got into a little bit of a yoga cult, actually. So I was,
Can you explain?
oh, geez. We eventually want to get to the MAHA stuff. But yeah, it's just, again, I think people that get into these groups and these cults, they're seeking, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of people that move to LA are definitely seeking. I was, and what I realized is I was seeking God. I was just kind of seeking it in the wrong places. And I kind of fell into this cult-like yoga thing where I
Yeah,
was,
like what is a yoga cult?
well, there's
what does it
usually
consist of?
a leader. It's
Okay.
so funny because I talk that, and everyone in LA is like knows exactly what it is. I'm in such a different world right now in DC, right? Everyone's like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, you could say there's political cults, right? I've written an article that compares the left with a cult
Yeah.
because the behavior's the same. And some people think those who are supportive of Trump are in a cult that we're following the leader. I would argue that that's absolutely not true. We're a follower of ideas. He just kind of happened to be the forefront of that movement. I think
Yeah.
the MAHA and the MAGA movement will last long beyond Trump, So I don't think it's a cult of one person.
Well, and almost every supporter has something that they disagree with him on.
Yes, correct. Anyway, to go back, we can address that again. But, I followed one teacher around. I went to Colorado. I spent tons. I always say, like, if you're spending a lot of money for someone like my church now, I'm back to Christianity, praise the Lord. They don't ask of me thousands and thousands of dollars. They ask me to give what I can. And to search my own heart for what that might be within my means. But I was like paying thousands of dollars to this person for the trainings, and then flying out to Colorado, finding places to stay, going to India, following that,
Wow.
yeah.
But what do you do like when you get there? You just like do yoga all day?
Meditation. See, people have these different ideas of what yoga is. I know.
Yeah.
We don't want to go down this road. Honestly, we can have an off. We can do maybe another episode on cults, which I'm happy to talk about because I understand the psychology of them. All that to say is what I was practicing, I thought would bring me happiness, and it never did. I was I was one of these liberal women that always had a grievance, right? Like we were just talking about the Sydney Sweeney thing. It's like we see a beautiful woman and all we want to do is complain about it, right? And say it's fascism and Nazi propaganda. You're like, no, it's just a beautiful woman selling jeans. That's long been the tradition of advertising, right? Up until about a decade ago. And now we're back to normal. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I was one of those women that always had a grievance against men, against racism, all these kinds of things. And I think I just got tired of being miserable.
Yeah, because that does not make you a happy person.
Like Jesse Kelly said to me in a podcast, that kind of behavior, that kind of psychology will age you faster than 2 packs of cigarette a day. And it's true.
Totally agree with that.
I was not happy. I thought I was seeking happiness, and I was looking around. I'm like, I'm not any happier. And so I decided just to maybe enter the real world again. I was very isolated in LA, as you know, living in California. The rest of the country looks at them like, you all are crazy. You're in some weird bubble.
Yeah.
You're not in touch with the rest of the world. And I definitely wasn't. I was in this kind of industry. And so something kind of was like, I think I'm going to just try to get in the real world again. Maybe go have a beer. Maybe have a shot of whiskey every now and then. Let it go.
Yeah.
And that's what I
The
found.
way the other half lives.
Yes. A couple girlfriends and margaritas are better therapy for me than paying $250 to some relationship therapist. So I'm trying to figure out, like, why am I single? Anyway, I could tell you why I was single then. But so I started to come out kind of back into the real world, and then COVID hit. And we all had a bunch of time on our hands. And I think a lot of people, we reevaluated. I think COVID is a gift, honestly. I don't mean that as I'm happy people, we lost lives and all that kind of stuff, are elderly. I think the worst sin of COVID was letting the elderly die alone, actually. That was the worst. That breaks my heart every time I think about that. My grandmother has passed well before that, but if I thought about not being able to see her, I couldn't.
Yeah.
So I had time on my hands. I did a lot of hiking. At the time, I lived in a canyon in LA. There are some beautiful parts of LA, and I happen to live in one of the most beautiful ones near Malibu. And I started getting red pilled.
How?
Ooh, there was a very specific moment. A very specific
That's
moment.
What I love.
Okay. And then I went down the rabbit hole. But like all good soldiers in Los Angeles, I was in acting classes, on and off for my 20 years there. And I did a lot of commercial work, commercials, print ads, that kind of thing. And we moved our acting class online during COVID. And this was, when were the George Floyd riots? May, right? Because we got shut down March 15th. And then, so a couple months, I was doing these acting classes online. It was the day after. I'll never forget, because I knew class was on a Thursday. So the George Floyd actual incident happened on a Wednesday. It was right after. And like a bunch of good leftists, we were all like navel gazing. And I'm such a bad person, because there was all white people in my acting class. There was nobody, we're all kind of navel gazing. Like, oh, I really need to look at my whiteness and understand how I played a part in this. And I'm kind of thinking, like, I had nothing to do with this.
Yeah. I'm just white. I don't know.
I'm in Los Angeles. This happened in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Okay, though, but I joined in because that is one of the tactics of the left. You start to self-censor. I remember my friend had given me that book, White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. This was way back. Not way back, but probably like 3 years prior to the George Floyd things. And I'm reading it, and I'm thinking, well, this doesn't make sense, because no matter what my behavior is, I'm a racist.
Yeah.
Just by a function of how I was born. But by the end of the book, I was agreeing. I was like, yeah, I'm a terrible person. So you start to any doubts that you have about, like, logically this does not make sense, that you override them. Because you want to be a good person. You want to be a good lefty. You want to be a good soldier. So again, back to this class, I kind of was like, yeah, maybe they're right. I could start looking at like my behaviors or whatever. Okay. So cut to maybe the next day or a couple hours after class, I see a video of Candace Owens. And I knew who Candace Owens was. I'm in my yogi liberal bubble, right?
Yeah. You're a good leftist. You have no
I
idea
was
who
like,
Candace Owens is.
I don't watch the news. I haven't had a television in 15 years. I never watched the news. That's, there's some benefit to that. There could be a positive to that.
We don't have a TV either.
Yes.
So.
I think if it's there, you tend to use it.
Yeah.
Unless you've established that habit of not, because I can go into a hotel room with a television and I'll never turn it on. I just don't even look at it. But anyway, I was listening to her commentary on the George Floyd episode, and she said, like any rational person, when this is a terrible tragedy, hopefully this will never happen again, but why are we holding this man up to be a martyr?
Yeah.
This guy is a criminal. He put a gun to this woman's belly, robbed them. This is not what we would normally consider in society a productive member of society and a good person. And I was like, wow, sister's got a point.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
And there was a little switch that flipped. And so me being me, I emailed my acting group with the link to her video, not knowing.
Oh my gosh.
It's like just being blissfully unaware that this is a political thing or who she was. Crickets, right? Absolute crickets. So I was like, yeah, they can watch or not, whatever. But one woman responded to me, kind of traditional leftist, lived in Venice, probably in a nice bungalow with a second house in Ojai, California, about an hour and a half up the road near Santa Barbara. A lot of beautiful people live up there. Ojai is a little more hippieville than Santa Barbara, but it's beautiful. And she messages me back and she said, Jennifer, thank you for sharing this. This is a thoughtful opinion from obviously an intelligent young Black woman. Paraphrasing here, but that essentially, and I have the email, I've kept it all these years, but that's essentially what she said. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, I'm not alone in this. Not even, I'm not kidding you, probably half hour to an hour later. All caps, Jennifer, exclamation point. This is Candace Owens from Fox News. How dare you are, scolding me for listening to her. And I was like, well, that's interesting because a half an hour ago, she was an intelligent young Black woman. And now she's evil. It's like,
what happened?
What's
in those 30 minutes?
What's going on here?
Yeah.
And then I started listening to some Thomas Sowell and Glenn Lowry, particularly on this issue because it was so poignant for me. Somebody accused me basically of being a racist, or something and I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. So it was like my brain turned back on after being dormant for 15 years.
Yeah.
There
were some cobwebs.
Yeah, there were some cobwebs. I like to say I've always had a brain. I just decided not to use it for a while. But I was in the entertainment industry. Just kind of went along to get along. And so that was like, wow. And like I said, and then I had another, what I thought to be a very good Black friend. And so I thought I could ask her opinion of someone like a Thomas Sowell, someone I thought I knew from the yoga community, but seemed to be more mature and wise and someone I trusted and loved. And I sent her a thing from Glenn Lowry. And her response was, Black intellectuals can make a lot of money on Fox News. Black conservatives can make a lot of money. I'm like, so their ideas aren't valid to you just because they're on Fox News. And as you know, someone like Glenn Lowry, very intelligent, one of the smartest professors at MIT, right? So you can't tell me he's not intelligent. This isn't some pundit.
Yeah.
And so that was another, I was like, wow, I can't even have this discussion. And then I went down, like I said, lots of time on my hand, COVID, Joe Rogan podcast, Jordan Peterson, and I knew what was happening in COVID after I had just kind of been coming out of the cult and realizing what I had been in. I'm seeing cultish behavior. I'm seeing people jump to the other side of the street. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And mostly I'm seeing it from people who always prized and valued preventative health, eating well, taking care of yourself, right? That spent hours a day doing this. And now you're running to the grocery store for toilet paper. Again, it's just like bing, 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 lights off in my brain. And I was like, I don't understand. And Jordan Peterson is known for reaching young, disillusioned men, reached me too. It's like, God, I got to start making my bed again. I got to start getting my house in order. I'm in LA, like, I'll never be able to afford a house here. Some years I was living paycheck to paycheck. I'm like, what am I doing? I can't, this is unsustainable. I'm not going to be a movie star. This is not, I don't think, what God wants for my life. And simultaneously, I returned to Christianity. So I got Jesus curious, and then God brings you the people in your life who will bring you to him and to Christ. And so that happened. I was baptized Greek Orthodox. I started going back to the Greek Orthodox Church eventually, kind of after a year back to just a non-denominational Christianity. So all of these things were happening at once. And then it was like slowly and then all at once. And then I decided to return to get my master's in public policy because now I had all this knowledge about health and what true health was and nutrition and eating well. And I'd been practicing it for almost 20 years.
And this is all before MAHA.
This was all before MAHA.
Yeah.
So I went back to Pepper. I actually reached out to my advisor for my public policy degree at Washington and Lee. I think this was 2021 in like January 2021. And I said, "Hey, I'm thinking of returning to get my master's in public policy. I think I want to go into health policy, but I know I've been out of the loop for so long. I'm going to need a new path forward." And he gave me a couple programs, and he said, "Well, Pepperdine has a school of public policy." I'm like, "That's 15 minutes up the street from me, up PCH. I mean, you can't ask for a better commute." Came down the canyon, went up to Malibu, back up a canyon. And I met with the dean, Pete Peterson, and we hit it off. And he said, "You should apply now." And I did. And the rest is kind of history. I went back to get my master's in public policy. What was interesting is I took a course in health policy, and I had a sense of this, that our health policy actually had nothing to do with health. We had a sick care system. I'm sure you've heard that. We have a sick care system, not a health care system. And I haven't had an orange pill bottle in a medicine cabinet for years. My philosophy, my approach was stay out of the system. Do everything I can to stay out of the system.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you're in it, you're done. And that also happened to be my career, was fitness. So I was moving every day. And I was like, well, I don't think there's a place for me here. I don't think people are ready to hear what I have to say. Like, all we're doing is tinkering with Medicare and Medicaid and insurance models and payout models. I'm like, that's not the problem. The problem is we're fat and we're sick.
Yeah.
I don't know. And the reason we have this $1 trillion explosion of health costs is because 80% of it is going to chronic disease, which means 80% of it is manageable and preventable. And I was like, who am I going to have these conversations with? I was actually meeting with some policy people in DC around health policy. They didn't even understand this language of preventative care and metabolic dysfunction or any of these things. Now, as I'm in school, Callie Means starts to come get notoriety. Joe Rogan starts to be talking about vitamin D, right? You're getting, it's building. 2021, I saw 2023. That's when I graduated. My first policy paper was actually, I had to give a presentation. I had a big slide at the end of it that said, "Make America Healthy Again."
Wow. That's very cool.
Yeah. And so, one, I just want to say how blessed I am to be here, to put in that work and just to be here in this moment. I think it's a unique opportunity. But it took me 2 years to find kind of my groove in this movement, because at first I thought, well, there's no room for me in this conversation. I'll go into foreign policy. That I always had kind of, when I was in undergrad, I always thought like, oh, I'd go to Georgetown for my grad degree and get an international policy,
That's what everybody wants to do.
Spy or FBI or something. Yeah, it all sounded very cool. I kind of got derailed from that. So, and then the MAHA movement came and I was like, well, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. And so I just worked and networked and moved back to the East Coast, knowing there's not much I can do in California.
Yeah.
There's really no space for me, which was really weird because when you think about the MAHA movement, the practices are very lefty. Acupuncture, chiropractor, food is medicine. That has always been a very California thing. Essential oils, right? Anything you can do to not get to the point where you need pharmaceuticals, that was created in California, all the woo-woo stuff. And I wrote a piece called Hippie Conservative, or no. Well, Rod Dreher calls it crunchy cons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wrote Hippie Conservative. I kind of coined that thing for myself because when you look at food as medicine, for example, and you look where food is sourced, well, it's the farmers. And that's always been like, a lot of farmers are just conservatives trying to steward the land. And anyway, I kind of made the argument that the OG hippies, those who cared for the land, are conservative. Now, the left captured that from us. They took the environmental movement and made it all about carbon neutrality, which is insane.
Yeah.
But that's another thing I'm very passionate about, is now kind of reclaiming some of the things that the left took over from us because we ceded that ground. We never kind of stood up for ourselves around environmental policies and what it means to be a steward of God's gifts to us. I think we can reclaim that now. There's an opportunity to reclaim that. And so that kind of gets into the food issues of MAHA. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's how I got here. I did give
Wow.
the long version. Sorry about
No,
that.
that was wonderful. I loved every minute of it. I think, to your point about farmers, I think what you're saying about family run farms
Correct.
is absolutely true. I do think we have a problem with a lot of the big conglomerates,
Right.
which, comprise most of I don't know the exact percentage, but most of, the food we grow here in the United States. And I was talking about this on a podcast episode a couple weeks ago, about at least in the upper Midwest, it's like big sugar, big corn, big soy,
Yes.
et cetera. Could you, because you know more about it than I do, could you help elucidate the differences in how small family farms and these large conglomerates view agriculture and their role in our food?
Yes. Well, and it's not just small versus large, because there's probably smaller farms using some of the products that the large agricultural conglomerates are using, because they've just kind of what's interesting is the companies that produce the subsidized crops. One thing is we started subsidizing a certain number of crops,
Yes.
mostly corn, wheat, sugar, and soy. So now we have an overabundance of these products.
Oh, yeah.
And where do those products go? They go into junk food. That is essentially what makes up highly processed food.
That's why soybean oil is in
Everything.
Yeah.
And so is corn.
Yes.
In some way, shape, or form, corn syrup, right? We went away from sugar to corn syrup. We can have that conversation.
We literally invented a new kind of gas to put corn in.
Exactly. And it can be argued that that's a better use for the corn.
I totally agree.
Ethanol. So yeah, we talk about that at Heritage a lot, and alternative uses. But anytime you're injecting subsidies into a market, it's going to distort the free market, right? And kind of the feedback loop of consumer demand and supply and demand. So there was this excess of supply. Well, what do we do with it? Oh, we'll create Doritos, corn chip, and then they're addicted to it. People have become addicted to that kind of food because it is addictive. High sugar, very palatable fats that don't actually have nutritive value, unlike a beef tallow or an olive oil or an avocado. And simultaneously, we got farmers addicted to chemical agriculture, to farming, what we now call conventional agriculture. I would argue conventional is not using any of those things, right? But it's also a boom in the population, a boom in a demand for these products now that they're addicted. Our lifestyles are fast, what I call kind of fast problems. Get rich fast, right? Eat fast, exercise fast. Everything's. We demand things now, right? This kind of consumerism of fast. I want it now, and I need it now. So fast money, fast enlightenment. That kind of speaks to the cult aspect. This fast enlightenment. I'm just going to follow a guru, and I'll be enlightened, as opposed to the long, slow haul of what Christ asks us to carry the cross every day. So all of these things, there is some responsibility on our part, right, to look how we're behaving. But we got kind of used to this culture. So we demand all these products. And how are we going to meet that demand? Well, it's easier just to spray pesticides and then to create seeds that resist the pesticides, which are GMOs. So they can, because a pesticide will kill everything, right? It's it's actually kind of an antifungal, antibacteria thing. It'll kill, like in our gut, it'll kill like an antibiotic. It kills everything, even the good stuff. So now we have to have Roundup Ready seeds, which are GMO seeds. And it's what happens is eventually this destroys the nutritive value of the soil. It just depletes the soil, because how it used to be is you did cover cropping. You had a whole ecosystem on a farm where everything was necessary in the natural world to kind of naturally maintain homeostasis on the farm, right? So you have bugs that have value. You have things that eat the bugs that have value. You've got horse manure, horse dung that has value because it refertilizes the soil. So you have this very sometimes fragile ecosystem So I don't always want to say like, I don't think there's some big room where a bunch of people, some bunch of dudes are with cigars and saying, how are we going to, how are we going to make everybody fat and sick? I think they came up with solutions that helped prevent disaster for farmers, right? Like crop insurance, Roundup Ready seeds that helped farmers be more productive easier. At the same time, though, we've depleted the soil to a point where absolutely it can't resist floods because there's nothing to hold it down. It's just kind of completely dry land, arid land. And so you've got disastrous floods. And then again, it's just like food. The more we become dependent on an outside source and not working in tune with nature, the same thing happens with our body, the more diseased we'll be. And I see this in the context, particularly with conservatism. It's a stretch, but I always try to kind of take a broad, almost spiritual, philosophical view. That's slavery, right? Being a slave to something. Like, I realized that when I was in the cult is like, I'm a slave to my thoughts. I'm a slave to somebody else for enlightenment. I'm a slave. And when I finally found true spiritual, emotional, psychological freedom with Christ, I'm like, this is what it means to be free. Right? We want to have support from our communities and our friends or our fellow farmers or our neighbors, right? When something goes wrong, but we don't want to be a slave to things that bind us, right? Which would be food. A lot of people are slave to what they eat. They have no control.
Yeah.
Right? And it takes discipline, just like our farming practices. If we want to move to more of a regenerative model, any farmer will tell you it's not easy. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort to learn. But once you're free of that, once these farmers are free of that conventional model, what we're now calling conventional, it actually will support them better financially. It will support their soil better, giving them more long-term sustainability. Now, again, you're always going to have catastrophes. It's also better for the environment, by the way, because the more you do start to do regenerative farming, that carbon that the left freaks out about gets captured in the soil. You can't have zero carbon. That's what plants feed off of.
Yeah.
That is life. Carbon is life. So their whole model of environmentalism is not even scientifically correct. It's just an ideology that they use to control people, right? To set up rules, arbitrary rules. So this is not going to be easy. And I'm not even saying that we can go to 100% regenerative model. I don't know that can feed the world, right? Or at least Americans. What we can do is we can start to support those farmers that are doing that kind of agriculture, regenerative agriculture. We can try to eat more locally. We can try to get to know our farmers. And everyone's like, well, you're in the city. I was like, look, anywhere. I live an hour and 15 minutes outside the city. It's all farms. It's not like it has to come that far away. I think, again, there's some personal responsibility and the culture really has to play a part of that has to drive the demand for these products. That's what we're talking. Like, I rather see a bigger demand, and you're seeing it with the MAHA movement, with just making this stuff, putting this stuff out there, making people more informed. All of a sudden, people are like, where am I getting my eggs? And can I get them from somebody down the road as opposed to paying $12 and relying on imports from that? So it's such a, particularly agriculture, it's such an entangled web because you are talking about people's livelihoods. We have moved as we become more industrialized from an agrarian society to a more technological society. Is there space for technology and regenerative farming? Which is yes. We're actually having a panel talk about technology and regenerative farming at Heritage on August 12th, a whole discussion on all of these issues. But it is going to take some time to untangle. I think much more than 4 years of Trump, Kennedy, Vance. I think this movement has to last. I don't think the United States is very good at this, of thinking long term. Right. We want everything to happen right now. I think you were going to ask me something about that, right? Like, some of these are these Band-Aid fixes, right? Yeah. Like cane sugar instead of corn syrup, or at the end of food dyes. Is that really going to change? Well, it could. I mean, the food dyes have been shown to cause ADHD in children. So there, it could start. We're going to have to make these gradual changes. You're not going to turn this ship around in 4 years. So if we can set up a long-term plan and keep the MAHA movement cohesive and not fractured, I think we have a real opportunity to change things.
Yeah. Backing up a little bit,
Sure.
let's start with the GMOs.
Yes.
I don't know a lot about GMOs. Bad, I assume. Explain.
I mean, it's been again, there's some research, yes. There's some research probably funded by the people that make GMO seeds, like Monsanto, that says no. I'm willing to look at all of it. Trust me. There's nothing I would love more than to say absolutely no impact on your health, long term, short term, because I don't want to pay $5 for organic food. Right now, it is more expensive to buy those food products. We'd love it not to be a luxury good. You know, how do we make healthy food not a luxury good? That's going to take some time. But, you know, I think we need good, unbiased studies. That's what Kennedy's calling for. For me, you can't have a democratic republic because we're not a democracy, but you can't have kind of a free market without educated participants in that market. So I want good information. Now, whether somebody believes, we're so polarized, right? And political, it's like, well, that was done by this person. You can't believe that. And that was done by this person. Well,
RFK denies science.
Exactly. Right. He did it. So it's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, which is ridiculous. And then it's not just, are they bad? Right. That's such a blank. There's so much nuance in this. Is that what does it affect? Does it directly cause cancer? Maybe not. This is the same with pesticides, by the way. But does it interrupt normal hormonal balance? Right. And that long term, it's causing infertility or it's causing cancer. Right. If you believe, one of the good things I learned from like kind of the left nutritional stuff, some Eastern philosophies of nutrition, is that all disease starts in the gut. And if you believe that, and you've got, you know, an imbalance in the gut that is not addressed, that can eventually lead to disease, chronic disease, inflammation, all these kinds of things that people are hearing now, all these buzzwords, chronic inflammation, metabolic function. This was never in the lexicon, not even 6 months ago. So the very fact that we're talking about this, to me, signals there's an appetite for this. But and we'll start to demand more knowledge about GMOs, pesticides, whether or not the government is doing anything about it. Yeah. That to me is the exciting part, is that the awareness has been raised. You've got, this is a positive of social media, I believe. You've got the FDA doing panels and roundtables. They're using this tool of social media. They now have like a little studio with Marty McCary, and they have guests on there and to talk about issues and women's health and things we've never talked about. And I think that's how it has to happen. You just, you know, get the awareness and get people educated, and then they'll start to let them ask the questions like, hey, what's in my food? Yeah. And demand that companies do better. Phrase of the left, I understand, but demand companies change.
Right. You know, you made what I think is a correct observation, that we live in a culture that says, I desire change now, immediately. Everything must be handed to me on a silver platter within the next 5 minutes. And I think, I was just thinking about this. One of the things where we're seeing that now in public health is like Ozempic. Yeah. Like people are like, instead of making lifestyle changes first, just like, give me the shot. You know, I'll get thinner. I don't really know a lot about it, but like, what's your read on like some of these drugs and that sort of thing that people are using, or even if that's like morally good for you to do, as opposed to making lifestyle changes?
Listen, I understand it's difficult for many different reasons for people to lose weight. I am never going to judge someone for but the rate of obesity we have, I would say if it was down in below 50% even of obesity, diabetes, right? Then there's I don't know, I'd consider like, okay, some people have a hard time losing weight. It's not just lifestyle habits, right? I don't believe in the whole genetic, even if it is true.
Yeah.
Like even, oh, my family has alcoholism in the family and it's genetic. I was born this way. It's
Everybody in my family is fat. Ergo.
ergo,
I will
I'm going to
be
be fat.
Yeah.
No. And again, this speaks to my spiritual foundation as well, is because I'm the last person I thought could change, right? And kind of my beliefs and my philosophies and my outlook on life, yet Christ kind of changed my heart. Like everything has changed in my life for the better. So I never believe that someone's a victim, even of their genes, right? Let's do everything to make sure that gene isn't activated and turned on. So don't drink, right? I don't know. You got a crap hand dealt to you. Sorry. We all do in some way, shape, or form. And so the Ozempic thing, but we've got, I mean, the percentage of people that are overweight and obese is disgusting.
Yeah.
If you have most of your military aged fighting males that don't qualify because they're unhealthy, it's a problem. So we have national security interests here too.
Yeah.
And now they're saying, no, it's people just didn't want to enter the armed forces.
Yeah.
With the political climate that we had, people just hated the military. So I think there's some of that can be true. But I mean, all you have to do is go to a major airport. It's not that hard to see we're fat and unhealthy.
Yeah.
Sorry. So when it's that big of a percentage of the population, not that many people can say, oh, it's genetic.
Yeah.
Okay. And when it's that obese, when it's that level, and God bless Jillian Michaels for this, that tough love. Americans need some tough love.
Oh.
It is not love to tell you you're healthy at any size. You are not healthy at any size. And
Your heart literally can't take it.
It cannot take it, right? And if kids can't run a mile in under 15, 18, 20 minutes even, come on. This is not good.
Yeah.
So with the Ozempic thing, it is a quick fix. And look how it became popular. It became popular because celebrities were doing it.
Yeah.
Right? That's really, and it's like, oh, I want that quick fix. We don't know what it does long term. You go off it, you gain the weight back. They will say that you take the Ozempic shot as you're building good habits, right? And then once you start to come off of it, then you have those habits in place. But it's such a dramatic weight loss. There's no way you're going to maintain. I think it's going to throw more women into eating disorders, which is, I have experience with that from a psychological standpoint. And what that is, this is going to be worse. You've gone from, a 5'4" girl being 150 pounds. She's now 198 pounds, goes off Ozempic, can't maintain that level of thinness. She'll either go back. Drugs are addictive, no matter what kind of drugs they are, whether it's food or something. We have to, in our entire culture, like you said, we want everything now. We have to get back to some sort of measures of discipline with our finances, with our eating, with taking with our Amazon purchasing. Sorry, I pray. I ask for forgiveness every day for using Amazon. But it's just, we need to be a little bit more self-monitoring. That's the price you pay for living in a democratic republic. And I think people have just turned everything over to the government. You tell me what to do.
Yeah.
You give me the good food to eat. We're going to have to start making some hard choices, right? And I always feel like, I always said when Trump was back, and I think Tucker Carlson said this, but I had this, I was like, that's it. It's like, Dad's home. We got to get some order back in the house, people. We got to get some Mom's been running the show too long.
Yeah.
Unless you've had, like me, I had a very disciplined, strict mother. But, we got to get back to some sense of some order. It's been chaos too long. And it's been chaos with our food. It's been chaos with pharmaceuticals, just like, and it's also the overdiagnosis of everybody. Oh, you're unhappy? Let's give you an SSRI. Let's give you a pill. And now you're on this endless cycle of mood. You're using a pill to tell you you're happy or not. And and the birth control pill, by the way, all of these pills that I mentioned, birth control, SSRIs, Ozempic, they disrupt the normal hormonal balance in the body. And then they kind of replace it with a synthetic.
Yeah. They
right?
disrupt the ecosystem.
The ecosystem. Exactly. We're going to stop. We're going to cut off whatever's bothering you, right? Instead of restoring balance through food, through herbs, through a lot of things that have been proven to work, maybe not as quickly, we're going to just cut it off and kind of reset through scientific methods. And that is, that's birth control. I wish doctors would tell young women, we're going to put you into menopause. That's what we're doing. And then we're just going to restart it again.
Yeah.
That's what birth control is, to make it, and it disrupts the natural So if we're talking about health stuff like birth control or Ozempic, what it does, it disrupts the natural feedback the feedback loop your body has to tell you something's wrong. So if her period stops naturally, something's off. Or if she skips months, or if she's got heavy bleeding, that's a feed that's telling you something's wrong. Now, if you've now controlled that with birth control, you'll never know.
Yeah.
And again, it can be used, I think, in certain, I'm not saying get rid of everybody's pharmaceuticals, because some of them are wonders of modern medicine. It's the dependence on them for every little thing. Like I said, oh, you're unhappy? Here's an SSRI. Oh, you've gained a little bit of weight? Here's an Ozempic shot, without thinking about any long-term consequences. And to your point, I don't know the long-term consequences of Ozempic. All I know is you've had enough cases where it's like women say they can't get off, they can't stop. I think Sharon Osbourne is like, I've become too thin.
Yeah.
And so her alternative is to go off of it. And then what? Right? Then maybe she'll gain weight back, or probably will, unless she's, and you get into women having disordered eating. So the other thing is, we don't teach doctors how to taper people off of these drugs. All the pharmacologist or whoever's responsible for selling the drug says, hey, this will cure that. I don't think they're getting education about when you deem it necessary to start to get your patient stable enough to start to wean your patient off of these. They don't train them how to do that. There is no training.
Yeah.
How to wean people off psychotic medications for depression or whatever. It's just, now you're just in the cycle.
Yeah, there's never any. I was listening to I can't remember her name now. I feel really badly about that. Tucker had this woman on recently.
Laura Delano?
Yes. That was
Unshrunk?
right. Yes.
She's a friend. Yeah, we've
My wife is reading her book right now and has been reading some of the quotes to me out loud. But that was one of the most deeply radicalizing podcasts I've ever listened to.
Yes.
Listening to that story, and it was she made what I thought was a very good point, that there's never any plan to wean you off of this.
Right.
It's you are going to be on these drugs
for the rest of your life. And then it gives you the label.
Yeah.
You are a depressed person. Not you're suffering some symptomology of life circumstances right now. Again, this is always, especially with psychological. I'm not saying there isn't some chemical imbalance in the brain or in the gut, because now we're looking at the role that the gut has to play in mental health disorders. There's a lot of people that have found relief from bipolar symptoms with a ketogenic diet. But I do think there's also a spiritual component to this, of that someone labels you that, and that's what you are for the rest of your life. You're depressed. That's how I felt when I was in this liberal ideology. It's just something I'm just going to have to kind of deal with depression and anxiety the rest of my life. It's just who I am. And Christ tells us that's not who you are. You're mine, right? You are not this person. You can change. And I'm going to show you how, or I'm going to lead you to right things in that faith. I think my faith was the cornerstone of all of this for me. And then to have that kind of humbleness to ask for help from him, that's what I see is missing in a lot of these other spiritual practices. Is there's a lack of humility. It does rely a lot about, it's me. I can do this on my own. I meditate 2 hours a day, and I'm self-enlightened, and I'm going to do, to me, that having Christ there was really important, but particularly with the psychological despairs, right? There's so much, especially with kids, there's so much right now that is thrown at them with social media and all this pressure. I mean, I think we're seeing a spiritual crisis as well. And if you don't address that, particularly with the psychological kind of things, and if someone just keeps telling you this is who you are, you're going to buy into it. Like Laura said that, and there's no direction for physicians to taper you off. And so when you said you were radicalized by her story, right? It's the same with any medication. Why is there you have a chronic heart condition?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just chronic inflammation and I can do something about it.
Yeah.
I mean, statins were the biggest scam of the lifetime. That is bad. How many people are on statins for cholesterol?
Yeah.
So that's a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah. I just didn't know a lot about, I never really knew anybody that was on SSRIs. I mean, my wife knows this. I don't even like to take medicine when I have a cold.
Yes.
I just don't.
I try to
don't
stick
take
out a
pill every
headache.
day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
So it was deeply radicalizing me. But getting back to the food stuff, one of my friends, Sagar and Jetty, who we were talking about, before we started recording, has kind of made this point that I think is a fair question, that a lot of the ways that companies have been proactively, changing the way they make food has been to, what he would say are sort of inherently unhealthy foods, right? So look, beef tallow French fries, they definitely taste better. They taste better, but they're not in any sense healthy, super good for you.
Well, why not though? They're potatoes.
Well, you tell me.
If you're eating, okay, so I had Thrasher's fries for the first time.
I don't even know
in
what that
Ocean
is.
City, Maryland. I ventured into Ocean City, Maryland the other weekend. Thrasher's is on the boardwalk. It's a big Thrasher's fries, right?
Okay.
And I actually saw stacks of potatoes. At least it's potatoes and oil. That's it.
Yeah.
And salt. Assuming I think they cook theirs in peanut oil. I'm not as well versed in that as compared to some of the other oils. Now, beef tallow, it is probably one of the most natural sources of healthy fats that you can get. What happens with some of these other oils at high temperatures, they can become carcinogenic. I don't know what that temperature threshold is for beef tallow, but it may be that frying in beef tallow is objectively healthier than some of the other kind of manufactured oils, like seed oils that kind of use, they saying it's petroleum. Again, I don't want to get too conspiratorial here about it was a thing from the DOD, and it was created for bombs and stuff like that. I don't know that, but it is possible. Why not just move to the most natural source of food as you can? There's nothing. We've been eating beef and meat products since the beginning of time.
Yep. Right.
Since the fall, since we're kicked out of the garden.
Yeah.
So, again, this is going to be we can't just start cutting everything off and saying, okay,
right.
These small changes will make a difference, I think, in the long run. It may be that doesn't cause as much inflammation in the body. I don't know. But here's what I can tell you. The more you start to eat natural foods in general, the less you crave the other stuff. So it might be helpful to go towards sugar as opposed to corn syrup and a Coke. I don't know, right? Because you're actually your body is wanting something. It's wanting sweet. Now, if it actually gets the thing it's wanting, maybe that's it. Maybe you just need those little bottles of Coke that we used to sell rather than the gargantuan. You'll be satisfied. You're like,
rather than the 3-liter.
Yeah. I think some of these manufactured sweeteners like corn syrup. Again, this is not something I know. I just try to stay away from all of it. And I have my vices, not going to lie. My one little Diet Dr. Pepper a day sometimes just gets me through.
Yeah.
Okay?
We've all been there.
Right?
Yeah.
I try to choose the lesser of all the evils. But I think these small changes, if nothing else, will signal a demand for companies to move towards a healthier lifestyle. And he's right. You're talking about more natural food dyes in a Twinkie. Is that really going to solve the obesity problem? No, but maybe those food dyes were causing more ADHD in children, right? I see every little opportunity for every little kind of movement of change, or every little movement as an opportunity to make a better choice even tomorrow.
Yeah.
So he's right. Probably metabolically, right? Sugar is still sugar. Carbohydrate is still carbohydrate. But the quality of food does matter.
Yeah.
It does matter. Your calories from an avocado are different than your calories from a Twinkie.
Yeah. Yeah. And Rome wasn't built in a day. And so with that, you know, my last question here is, what do you see for the MAHA movement 10, 20, 30 years down the line? Like, how do we get more, you know, you have like the MAHA moms, but how do you get like everybody to take this seriously? Like where, you know, we're not filling our bodies with junk food all the time.
Yeah, it's going to require a whole change of thought. And that is going to require time to get the message out. I think what Kennedy and HHS and FDA and CDC, you've got good people in place. You've got Bhattacharya. This guy isn't some left-wing crackpot, like, you know, anti-vaxxer. He's probably the most well-studied, researched, published. I think he's an epidemiologist and also economics from Stanford. I mean, these are not like same people with COVID that were kind of talking about, you know, the COVID lockdowns were ridiculous. He was part of the Great Barrington Declaration. I mean, these are not, Marty McCary is not some weird alternative person, right?
He's not a whack job.
Yeah. And on the same token, MAHA has to realize that that just because they don't get everything they want right now, these people are not evil and conspiratorial. Like I hope MAHA doesn't go so conspiratorial. They don't understand how this has to happen, which is slow, incremental. You might not get everything you want right away. We might not be able to get pesticides out of all agriculture right away. But I think the messaging is on point. I think what Kennedy is doing with vaccines, despite the pushback he's getting, the major pushback, is good. Taking the thimerosal out, all of these things, taking the mercury-based kind of preservatives out of vaccines, questioning the vaccine childhood schedule, right? It's going to take a lot of education. It's just like the smoking campaign.
Yeah.
That took a long time to convince people. You had doctors saying like, I smoke Marlboro Lights. And you're like, you know, some people were like, this can't be.
Yeah.
Right? But it took a long time. And eventually it trickled down to everybody, not just the wealthy, not just privilege. This is the hard part of policy, is how do we make it accessible for everybody and not just the elite? Because you do hear that a lot. Like, oh, that's nice. You can afford to eat organic.
Right.
And
you can afford $7 egg.
To what's his name? And Jetty Sagar's point.
Yeah.
Right. I don't care if the broccoli was grown conventionally organically for a lot of people. I just care that they eat broccoli over a frozen dinner. So how do we educate people about food, where food comes from? And that's going to be harder with the less privileged population. So there's some policy stuff, but there's also some responsibility, and you can't force these things on anybody. That was the Michelle Obama mistake of healthy foods in schools. Well, the kids didn't want it.
Yeah.
So you can't, you're wasting a bunch of food. A lot of that too came down from a very misdirected food pyramid. We didn't even get there, but we'll get there. We can have a whole other conversation just on that, because we're doing a public event around that at Heritage as well. I think patience, compromise, understanding, all the things that we know are necessary just to bring society to be more cohesive again. This really is apolitical. I mean, I don't understand how you're going to politicize health, particularly for children. So can you just can the left listen a little bit? Can the right not go so conspiratorial? Can we have some common sense and some compromise here? Because that's the only way it's going to happen. If we continue to engage in, like, you know, the government's out to get us, and they're all trying to kill us, and like the left's reluctance to take any of this seriously because it's coming from Kennedy, and they have a chip on their shoulder that he left them.
Yeah.
Right. And joined Trump. We've got to find some compromise here.
Yeah. Well, this was all very fascinating. Where can people find you, keep up with all the work that you're doing at Heritage?
Yes. Well, at Heritage Foundation, we will be doing public events. We're aiming for once a month or so on some of these topics. One, to educate ourselves. We're not experts. We're not farmers. We're not experts in agriculture. We really haven't taken this on. So we're holding one August 12th on the future of farming, a pro-health and pro-farmer agenda. We're having farmers, come in, talk about their experience with regenerative. Is this sustainable? And also, like I mentioned earlier, tech and regenerative agriculture. I think the next one we'll be doing is on the food pyramid and nutritional guidelines. That will be coming up in September. We're also launching a podcast, myself and Jay Richards at Heritage.
Awesome.
Called Raw.
I love Jay.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's been fun. It's been so fun. I mean, I love my job. I feel very, very blessed. So check out always the Heritage events page, because we will be doing these on the regular. Plus the podcast will be coming out within the next month or so. Personally, I think I'm on JENN Galardi on Twitter, Jennifer Galardi on Instagram. Good old fashioned Google search to do the trick.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. I'm sorry I talk so much, but
no, it's great. That's what it's for.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to another fantastic episode of Moment of Truth. Once again, you can find all of Jennifer Galardi's work over at the Heritage Foundation. We really hope you'll take notice of the things she's working on. It's very interesting, and it was definitely a charge to me as I've, gained weight over the last couple of years, having kids at home. My wife's Southern cooking is too good. This is a fantastic episode and a real inspiration to me, and I hope it was to you all. Thank you again for tuning in, and we will see you again next week. Moment of Truth is an American Moment podcast taped at the Conservative Partnership Campus Studios and is produced by Jake Mercier and Hunter Smith, with original graphics and title cards by Jared Cummings. Our intro song is A Minor Struggle by Ryan Serenich, and our website is AmericanMoment.org.